Betting Weekly. Handicappers, they're all in the know. Pick some winners and then we say, let's go. So come on, it's time to watch the show. We're talking hardball, Ken Griffey's grotesquely swollen jaw. We're talking hardball, over under on the hot dogs. Talking hardball, bring a giant bag of peanuts. Talking hardball.
Latest edition of Betting Weekly Hardball. I'm Doug Kezirian alongside professional handicapper and betting personality Wes Reynolds on this fourth week of this brand new show. We are every single day, including today being a holiday, every single weekday, I should say, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. We also launched Betting Weekly Fast Break. That is 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, and that is obviously 1 hour from now. Wes also appears on that show as well. Had a big weekend handicapping hoops. So well done, Wes, on that front. And we're going to talk a little baseball today.
Yeah, looking forward to it. We got some day ball, obviously, underway with the Memorial Day holiday as we remember our fallen today. And very, very somber day, but very good to have some good baseball action, at least in the early going.
Yeah, we're going to keep an eye on things. Giants and Tigers underway. We are scoreless, top of the fourth. We'll discuss some betting lines of that game, and then actually going to have a couple games that get underway on our watch on the show. So we're also going to maybe get some last-minute tickets on that front. But Giants and Tigers has a pitcher's duel so far. We'll see if the bats get going. But Wes, I want to just jump right into it because we have a game starting in less than 10 minutes. Red Sox visit the Brewers. Garrett Crochet on the bump for Boston. They are a 167 road favorite at Bet Rivers, over under 7. So another pitcher's duel expected here. Over is minus a quarter. Does anything stand out to you on this game, at least pre-flop, as we like to say?
Yeah, I think the way I would probably look at it is to somehow play Garrett Crochet here. And you could play it in the prop market. Now, you got to pay a pretty penny, though. It's around about $1.60. There's a little bit less in the market if you shop around. I think we're at 162 right now at Bet Rivers, but over 17.5 recorded outs for Garrett Crochet. Because if you look at the Red Sox bullpen, you had Zach Kelly throw 25 pitches yesterday in the loss to the Orioles. Greg Weissert and Liam Hendricks have each worked the last 2 days. And then 3 other arms, Brennan Bernardino, Justin Slayton, Justin Wilson, they would be working their 3rd out of 4 days if they are used in this matchup in Milwaukee today. So, you're going to have to eventually use somebody in the bullpen, but you got to think that they're going to stretch Crochet out a little bit because the bullpen, not exactly totally taxed, but could use a little bit of work from the starter here to stretch that out. So Garrett Crochet, by the way, has gone 100 pitches or more in 5 of 11 starts. So they will give him a little bit of a leash here. And the Brewers, by the way, against left-handed pitching, not the worst, but near the bottom third. I think they're about 8th, actually, as I'm looking at the rankings. Worst in OPS, on-base percentage plus slugging percentage against lefties. So they're in the bottom half of every statistical category, whether you look at batting average or on base or just on base percentage, just separate them a little bit. So Crochet, I think, can do some work and pitch pretty well here, even though you got some heavy vig. So over 17.5 recorded outs. Of course, that means you got to get 18. So that means he's got to go 6.
And you liked isolating Crochet because you don't want to trust the offense against Chad Patrick, who's had some pretty nice outings. I would imagine that's at least what I'm seeing in your decision to maybe just go prop in terms of involving Crochet rather than maybe Red Sox money line or something along those lines.
Yeah, we did see some steam on the money line. It's up even at some places into the $1.70s, and perhaps a little bit too rich here. But I just think with Crochet, you got a guy that's averaging 10 and a quarter strikeouts per 9 innings, only a 1.98 ERA. So I don't look at the ERA as much as I do the xFIP, and we've talked about this on Hardball in the past. xFIP is, I think, the best barometer of a pitcher. Well, he's right at 3 on the XFIP. So you're thinking, okay, the XFIP's worse than the ERA, so regression is coming. Well, really not that much when you look at that. Like when I'm looking at playing those regressions on a pitcher, I'm looking at a pitcher that has like a 2.25 ERA and like a 450 or a 475 on the XFIP, because that says, okay, there's been a little luck here, maybe with the batting average balls in play, or they've been getting a lot of ground balls, or something is happening there. So yeah, I decided to isolate Crochet a little bit. I was maybe looking to parlay that. If you don't want to lay the juice, that's another way to play it. You could parlay it with a bigger favorite. It's not going to give you a lot of return. You could maybe do that against the Cubs, which are coming up, which I know we're going to get to momentarily, or perhaps the Mets, who play the White Sox later this afternoon, and they're about 270 on market average favorites, if you want to do that. But I elected not to do that and just go ahead and not mess around and play just Crochet on the recorded outs.
Yeah, I really don't trust either of these offenses against the opposing pitcher. Now, Chad Patrick, not the household name that maybe Crochet is, but I'm still going to isolate the first 5 innings. I mean, we have a low total here at Bet Rivers, which is surprising, right? It's 7, that the current price on the app, if you look at it. And then I like the first 5 innings, 3.5 minus 117. Not a big number. Usually first fives are 4.5. But look, if you think about it, it's 7. You got the extra innings potential, bullpen. I think there's line value on the first 5 in my eyes. Now, one pitcher can get touched up a little bit and you're really playing with fire there, but that's the risk you run when you have a pitcher's duel. But if you can get through the first and maybe have a nerfy, you got some smooth sailing ahead of that. So I do like first 5 under 3.5 in this game that starts in less than 5 minutes out there in Milwaukee. So it's not at Fenway. Doesn't have the green monster to deal with and that quirky batting, some of the for batters. Meanwhile, they've gone to the bottom half of the 4th inning. Tigers still without a hit. They are minus 186 on the money line because it's scoreless, and they have obviously an extra ups, so to speak, because they're in the bottom half of the 4th, and it's the meat of their lineup because a runner has gotten on for the Giants, and then also a walk. So Montero is not, excuse me, Birdsong is not perfect, but he's been effective. But 51 pitches through 3 innings is kind of a lot. Montero's allowed just 1 hit and also 1 walk. So we'll continue to update that. That over under is down to 5.5, so really low, and then just moved to 5 at Bet Rivers. So obviously, pitchers duels, low scoring game is going to shave the over under from the beginning of the game. As for the Brewers and Red Sox, before we move on, that total is 7 over minus 125. Red Sox minus 167 on the money line as a road. We have another game starting this hour, and that is a friend of the program, the Colorado Rockies, who we talk about nearly every show, visiting the Chicago Cubs. You see the money line there, minus 345 for the North Siders at home, over under 8. Now, Jameson Taillon, who obviously came into the big leagues with high expectations, number 2 overall pick, has not really panned out, bounced around, went to the Yankees. He's facing Carson Palmquist, who recently got called up, I should say, and he's been touched up in both games. He has a unique arm slot, but it's bad. And on the show, we've discussed how bad their minor league system is, but he's a warm body, so the Rockies are throwing him out there. Run line minus a $1.52. Now, first question for you, Wes, because this is a team that's 9-44. They've lost 19 of 22, and of those 19 games, 16 of those 19 losses have come by at least 2 runs. So run line's been the way to go if you like that side, at least over the last 22 games, 19 of which have been losses. How do you view these Rockies run lines and money lines these days? Because I personally feel the market is caught up. I feel like now there's a tax for bullying the Rockies that we don't see with the White Sox or even the Orioles.
Well, and Doug, when everybody starts talking about it and everybody knows about it, that's when the market, I think, catches up. So I think that you're right there. So no, I'm not playing it every day. I know, bettors look when a streak is good to you and you win a couple in a row, you keep coming back for more and more and more, which is a better approach than being stubborn, obviously, and try to say, okay, this is when the streak is going to stop. You don't want to do that, because it's like, to prove your point, you may lose 3 or 4 bets to finally say, I knew the streak was going to stop. So you don't want to necessarily get in front of it, I would say. But yeah, I think that this is probably, priced right here. Colorado, their bullpen, they're beat up. Like I look and see, okay, who are the tax bullpens every day, and every day it's Colorado because you're not getting 6 innings very rarely out of a starting pitcher. So yeah, everything is priced right. So it's very hard now when you got a team that's 9-44. That by far is the worst team in all of Major League Baseball. Yeah, I don't really. A lot of times I leave these guys alone and I don't bet it because that's the last thing I want to do is like get into like where a team's got a streak going, and then when you jump in the pool, then the shark's gonna bite you. So or the water, the shark's gonna bite you, shall we say? So yeah, the Rockies are a team I kind of leave alone a little bit for the most part.
Now, just to give you some pushback, I understand as a bettor how you may want to not be the one trying to too late to the party, so to speak, like you said, jumping in the pool late. But has it been? I mean, do you regret not getting involved? I mean, this team is 944. They have the worst ROI of any team in the big leagues. They're down 26 and a half units or something along those lines. Why not start now? I mean, we're only 50 something games into the season. Plenty of time for them to continue to stink if they are in fact this bad in terms of an outlier all time.
I don't think it's going to be quite what the A's were a couple years ago. Remember when there were people who thought, oh, the A's aren't going to win 40 games. And then all of a sudden, they got kind of a little bit hot in July and August, and started to win games. And then I think got close to 60. So I don't think that's going to necessarily happen for the Rockies here. But I just, I think you got to go. I think you got to go situationally with these guys. Maybe some of these pitchers, like I did play a bet. I had Palmquist under strikeouts against the Phillies, who are absolutely mashing in what is a hitter's park in Coors Field. So I went under strikeouts and got there, but I haven't played a lot of run lines and I haven't played a lot of sides. I've been kind of attacking in prop market, whether you go over earned runs or you go under strikeouts. Now today I'm not messing with it because this looks like an under game because this definitely is a weather game because you're looking, okay, why is this total so low in Chicago here early on? Well, wind blowing in, a little bit colder of temperatures. It's been a little cold in the Midwest. Certainly was for the 500 yesterday. I think about 57 degrees. Winds blowing in from center, so that's why you're seeing it get bet to the under. But to go back, cycle back to your question, yeah, I guess there's probably regret, but you move on because there's games every single day.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're always going to regret things that are so lopsided. And so, why didn't I bet that? If once 40 to 1 future, that's now 8 to 1. Like, why didn't I bet? Of course, we have revisionist history, or we have we have the crystal ball, so to speak. But I just wonder if we're missing opportunities. Now, the Rockies have been sort of competent of late. They've won a game here and there. Um, I bet Rivers. You can bet the three-way line, which is minus a half through 3 innings. Cubs minus a half, minus 120. So if you think they get to Palmquist quickly and Tyone can hold his own against this Rockies lineup, it's an option. In the 5 inning, first five laying a half run, it's minus 182. Now their bullpen's bad, but you got to lay an extra run. So I do like if you were going to do it, I would consider the minus 182 in the first five on the three-way line, or minus a half on the third inning, 3 inning line, which is only minus 120. But you got to get to Palmquist quickly. So there's other ways to play this. Again, starts in less than 10 minutes. That is sort of a little afternoon baseball. They remain scoreless in Detroit. However, the Tigers do have 2 on and 2 out. First and second, Birdsong finally gave up his couple hits now in this inning. Tigers are threatening. Dingler's at the bat, and Birdsong has them on an 0-2 count. And something happened because it's now closed. Brewers and Red Sox are underway. That over/under now 7, as I believe the first batter just got out. So it's beautiful to watch this stuff work. And then 7.5 over minus 125 is now minus 121 because the first batter got hurt, got out.
One thing I
Okay.
want to jump in.
Yeah.
Sorry, one thing I
Sure.
want to jump in on the Tiger side. Keep in mind, you have a very rested bullpen today because Tarek Skubal basically gave him the day off, going complete game yesterday. So you do have a rested bullpen for the Tigers. So that's got to be, I think, at least a little bit in your handicap. I was gonna actually play them today Just thought the price was right, and I ended up passing on that first game. But I did lean Tigers for that very reason. And plus, San Francisco, a very rare early Monday start because we have day ball on the holiday. They were going road to road here, so they were in DC, and now I believe the Tigers do have a run courtesy of the hit by Dingler. So now 1-0. So that's something to keep in mind. And I know we're going to talk about that later on here in this episode. We're going to talk about these teams that got to go road to road against a team home to home, and San Francisco certainly fits into that in a bad way against Detroit today.
So any interest right now? The money line's minus 305 as the Tigers lead 1-0, still 2 on. Run line is minus 106, and the over under 6. Anything stand out right now?
Maybe the total a little bit. Looking to the under here, trying to perhaps get in at, I think it's 6.5. Juice the under like in the 30-ish range. Would look a little bit to the total because I think you got a rested bullpen and you have Montero, who at 65 pitches, I think you got to anticipate he's at least going 5, and maybe they even stretch him out to the 6th. So you've got a pitcher that's pitching pretty well. He's only given up a hit and a walk in 4 innings so far.
Right. Okay. So maybe you just have that little faith in that offense for San Francisco. And so maybe that's the play in your eyes. But keep an eye on that. So at Bet Rivers, right now, the over under 6, minus 121. Giants have 2 runners on in scoring position, 2 out. Sweeney at the bat. Birdsong trying to get out of the jam with minimal damage, only allowing 1 run. They're still in the top of the first. Devers is at the dish, full count, 1 out in Milwaukee. So that game just underway, and we have the Rockies and Cubs starting in 5 minutes. So switch gears to games later this afternoon, and I want to discuss Texas hosting Toronto. Jacob deGrom has been outstanding the past month and change. Really just maybe not necessarily vintage deGrom because he's a different version of himself, but the stat line is vintage. And at Bet Rivers, he's only minus 139, very low total at 7 here. Just, Gossman on the bump. And I think he's obviously hit or miss. ERA over 4. He's been much better than I thought he'd be. deGrom's brought his season ERA down to 2.33. But like I said, over the last month and a half, he's been awesome. First things first, any interest at 10-1 to win the American League Cy Young in your eyes? I think I would need like at least 15-1 if I were to get involved, Wes. But what about you?
Yeah, I can't really get there on the price. And deGrom has had some outstanding outings, but one of the things you want to look at with deGrom, and of course, we know his injury history. This is not a guy that, even though he did go over 100 against the Yankees, this is not a guy that you see Bruce Bochy extend 100 pitches. He's usually going to be around 90, 92. He's probably done. And I've seen that in a couple starts this year. I think it was a couple weeks ago against, I want to say it was Detroit. And he walks a guy in the 6th. And, kind of squeezed him a little bit. And they got him right out of there at 90 pitches, even though he had 10 strikeouts, by the way, in 5 innings in that outing. So that's what always kind of concerns me a little bit about Jacob deGrom is like, he's never going to give you these like super long outings where he's going into the 7th or going into the 8th, or those are very rare. They really monitor that pitch count because of the injury history. So that's why I would probably need a little bit more. I don't think there's a lot of value at 10-1 on deGrom here.
Okay, good. I feel the same way. It's a long ways to go, but he is a guy, and we put up the odds just a second ago, the graphic of all those guys. He is a guy that I think is reliable to continue this. Now, Max Fried, some of the other guys at the top of that list, Hunter Brown, even Evaldi, he's had his moments, but it's the bigger names I would obviously bank on because we're only, a third of the way through the season. So Skubal,
Yeah.
Crochet, and deGrom are the ones that stick out, but Skubal's going to be tough to beat. Obviously a stud last year. And then there's a chance that some of the other guys, and who knows, someone else can make a late surge. We've seen some long shots cash in these types of markets, but I at least wanted to throw it out there. In terms of this game, we mentioned Rangers $1.39, low total at 7. Obviously Texas's lineup leaves a decent amount to be desired. Maybe not a lot, but a decent amount to be desired. Any opinion for you on this game?
Yeah, we're seeing Toronto get a little bit steamed overnight and in the morning. The under's also getting hit. 7 juice to the under. So I think the way to play that if you don't want to fade DeGrom, who has been very good and very effective, maybe the way to play it is through the opposing pitcher. And I think in Kevin Gausman's case, that would be over 5.5 strikeouts is the way I would look. Now, Gausman has actually been better at home this season than he's been on the road. Last year was the exact opposite. He was very good on the road and a little bit shaky at home, but comes off that start against the Padres where he had 9 strikeouts, goes 7 strong, 92 pitches. The strikeouts have been very good. Just needs to be a little bit better on the road. He's had a couple shaky outings. Now, one of them was against the Yankees at the stadium, where you can have a short outing. I think that was the last outing in April. He went like 2 2/3. But by and large, this is a guy consistently that's going to go more often than not 6 innings. So he is going to have that opportunity. So I thought another way to play it was Gausman over 5.5 strikeouts.
I can see that. I can see that. I do like the Rangers here. I think it feels cheap for DeGrom. As of now, not a formal play, but I think once you get to a buck 39 with DeGrom, and I know the lineup's the lineup, but still, man, that like Gossman does have potential to get touched up. So that's something to keep in mind. Meanwhile, Chad Patrick got out of it in the first inning with the Red Sox 3 up, 3 down. So we've now gone to the bottom of the first with Milwaukee. Garrett Crochet takes the bump, still scoreless, obviously, if no one's got a hit or anything. Now the Red Sox are now underdogs on the live line, and that's because the Brewers just went yard. Leadoff home run. Milwaukee up 1-0. Leadoff dinger against Crochet. Buck 40 live line for Milwaukee over under 7.5 now. And then the Tigers only had got that 1 run, so they've head to the top of the 5th. Montero has already got the first 2 batters out, so they're cruising against this Giants, he's cruising against this Giants lineup. Rockies and Cubs just underway. First batter of the game to face Jameson Taillon at Wrigley Field. So we covered this. There's some trends I want to discuss, and you alluded to it earlier, Wes, in terms of road on the heels of facing a team that's at home in back-to-back series. And that's the Dodgers coming off Sunday Night Baseball. You mentioned it earlier this season on this very show about Monday following Sunday Night Baseball. Take us through that.
Yeah, so far, and last year it was a little bit more even, but so far this year it is 1-6 for a team that is on the for Sunday Night Baseball that's got to go to a new city without an off day. It's 1-6 this year. The only win, I believe, were the Dodgers, who played the Marlins, and they were like -2.25 against the Marlins. But so far, 1-6 for that road team. Of course, the Dodgers did play in Queens against the Mets, lost 2 of 3. So now they go on the road to Cleveland. It's been a tough scenario for those teams. So I was looking to see, okay, what do I want to do here? Yamamoto off his best outing of the year, and Yamamoto has been by and large terrific. But do you get a little bit of short-term regression here? And a way that maybe I would look at this, if you want to follow this trend, you haven't seen a lot of movement on the money line, though, by the way, maybe about a 5-cent move to Cleveland on average. But you are seeing the total get hit to the under, where it was 8 in the overnight. And now you're seeing 7.5 minus $1.20. I think 113 at Bet Rivers. But everywhere you look, it's been bet to the under. So what I think that does is that gives a little bit more value for the run line. Now, a lot of people that bet the run line, a lot of bettors, in fact, most bettors, I would say, they bet the run line, lay in the 1.5 to get that plus price with the big favorite. And I understand why. We were talking about that, laying that against the Rockies just a few minutes ago. But where I think there's a little value in this game is taking the 1.5 at home with the Guardians, and just looking at the price right now at Bet Rivers, -117. That's actually the low in the market, because most of the market is about -$1.25. There's some $1.27s out there at the offshore credit stores. So you're getting the best of the number here. You're getting a game that the market clearly thinks is going to go under and be low scoring, and you're getting the team that bats last being the home team with the Guardians. So I kind of like the Guardians getting 1.5 runs, -117 here.
I would say getting the +1.5 as the home team, you get the catchers and different stuff like that. The late backdoor can be open. I prefer, if I'm getting 1.5, because you want the home team, if it gets late, they're only going to play for that winning run. in the ninth inning and later. But nonetheless, there is an advantage to maybe backdooring it. But I certainly understand there are situations, and I appreciate you explaining that to our audience, in that it does make sense to take the run line, if you, especially with the over under so low, like you mentioned, getting steamed on the under from the market, runs will be at a premium. And so plus 1.5 carries more value. It's just like a football game in the NFL when you have, a rock fight, defensive battle, 40.5, 38.5, and you're getting plus 3.5. Well, that matters a lot more than one that is supposed to be a shootout with two high powered offenses. So it's simple, larger pieces of the pie, if you will, if the pie is only 7.5 runs.
And you get a Guardians team too, by the way, that did take 3 or 4 in Detroit. Of course, Scoop Ball shut him down to avoid the sweep yesterday, but Detroit's been red hot, and the Guardians got 3 wins up there at Comerica. So you got a team that I think is feeling pretty good here, and maybe catching the Dodgers in a really tough spot.
And the Rockies go 3 up, 3 down. So we head to the bottom of the first at Wrigley Field, and that lineup coming to bat to face Palmquist, and that money line is now minus 480, and the over under 7. You thought that was an under game. And so that over under has gone from 8 to 7 because the Rockies didn't score in the first, which I could have told you that before the game. Brewers get that 1 run off Crochet, but they do have a runner on with 2 outs now. And the Tigers, Montero, throwing a 1-hitter through 5. They've gone to the bottom half of the 5th, and Detroit leading 1-0. Just a reminder, we are all part of the Betting Weekly umbrella. There's some awesome programs out there, especially with the French Open going on right now. So check out Betting Weekly Game Bet Match and Betting Weekly WTA, because great angles. Our handicappers have been on fire. There's some good insight on we had some of our guys had some great ones in Betting Weekly Tennis Live with Rory Giovanni and Tim Dennis. We'll all take a look at Wednesday's action at the French Open. That is tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern. So again, all part of the Bet Rivers Network and Betting Weekly umbrella. This is Betting Weekly Hardball, Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And we set the table, so to speak, in baseball, and Betting Weekly Fast Break follows us with everything going on in basketball, and not just the NBA, but also the WNBA, big Caitlin Clark news. So we'll dive into that and how that impacts the futures in the short term as well for one of the more popular teams in the league. Let's get back to the Diamond. And there's a game you wanted to discuss. It does involve an interesting matchup, because I will say I'm surprised he's been able to turn things around. And who I'm talking about is Chad Morton, because Charlie Morton, excuse me. He came up early in the season getting lit up, but he's settled down, all things considered, and he's facing off against Eric Fetty and the Cardinals. So Orioles, who've been a giant disappointment this year, hosting the Cardinals. Pretty evenly matched money line at minus 103 for the home team. Slight favorite, I guess, for the St. Louis Cardinals. Over under 9. What's the angle you wanted to discuss here?
Yeah, Morton, who you mentioned, did get bumped back to the bullpen. Now he's back in the starting rotation. Has not been good. Maybe he has figured it out in terms of going back to middle relief and now back in the rotation. They need some kind of good news in Baltimore. But the way I looked at this was playing not necessarily playing the Cardinals on the money line, but playing the opposing pitcher, and that's Eric Fetty, who has gone the reverse, where he was so good at home but then bad on the road. Well, this year he's been a little bit better on the road since that start in Boston. I believe I want to say, I'm just checking the date here. It was April 4th against Boston, where he got absolutely lit up. That was his first road start of the year, by the way, there in Boston, where he only went 3 innings, gave up 6 earned runs, 2 home runs. But since then, he has cleared 16 and a half outs, which is going 5 1/3. Or 5 2/3 you got to get, because you got to get 17, I should say. At Pittsburgh, went 6 innings, 18 outs, 88 pitches. And then on the 21st of April at Atlanta, 18 outs, 6 innings, 84 pitches. At Washington, complete game shutout. So all 27, 109 pitches. And then last road start at Philadelphia, goes 17 outs, 5 2/3, 93 pitches. So I think Fetty should be able to pitch well today against an Orioles lineup that has just really struggled. This team has been the biggest disappointment in baseball. You keep thinking, okay, it's going to get better, because sometimes you get those teams that start out a little bit sluggish, right? That, they have a bad April and then they start to turn around in May. We've kind of seen that a little bit with the Atlanta Braves. But We're not seeing it with the Baltimore Orioles. There's just not a turnaround. They've already fired the manager. They've had some injuries, especially with their pitching, and that's why one reason I think they've been behind the eight ball. But they also haven't really been hitting the Baltimore Orioles here. You're seeing the total down from 9.5 to the overnight, down to 9 juice to the under, or 8.5, even some spots juice to the over. So I think the best way to play this would probably be Eric Fetty. It also doesn't look like Roochman is going to go. He's out with an injury. So you look at these guys at the bottom of the lineup, especially. They're not hitting at all. They're in the 200s, they're in the 100s. So I think Fetty, should be able to kind of cruise a little bit early. And then it might get it to be a little sweat late, but I like him over 16.5 recorded outs.
Right. I can get behind that. I think it's going to be really interesting, to your point, how Morton responds here with the Orioles. Going back to the starting rotation, it started really ugly for him. And then I think I'm optimistic. So I'm not just jumping on St. Louis, but famous last words, but I don't see any reason how someone could bet the Orioles at minus 103 right now. I
No.
know on paper, and I discussed it last week. I texted an odds maker, and I read back the text. His reply, he goes, "Look, the market is not adjusted to the Orioles." He even said, "I'm probably guilty of it myself, but this is a team that is clearly underachieving, and everyone's using sort of their preseason expectations and numbers, and that's why the Orioles have been mispriced. And outside of the Colorado Rockies, the worst team ROI in all of baseball. So Colorado is the only team worse than the Orioles against the money line. So and you have Fetty, like you said, like there's a lot to like here with St. Louis. So I'm tempted in that game, top of the hour or just past the top of the hour. So that's a game coming up. I'm glad we got into that. There's some night games. There's some West Coast games that have caught my eye. Got the Yankees at the Angels. Ryan Weathers pitching great as the Marlins visit the Padres, Pirates, and D-backs. The Pirates. We talked about it. 26 straight games, not scoring more than 4 runs. Okay, that tied a Major League Baseball record, a modern era record. Then 2 of the next 3 games, they've gone over that number. So I don't know if the bats have just woke up or it's just one of those things. But now they're in Arizona. So that's an interesting game in my eyes as well. Twins and Rays. Paddock has been fantastic for Minnesota. I mean, really surprising how great he's been. And so I kind of want to bet on him. And he's plus +05 against the Rays, who are nothing to write home about in my eyes. So any of those games loosely caught your eye, or at least why you're passing? Anything jump out to you?
Well, let me go to the last game first that you just mentioned, Minnesota and Tampa Bay. This is and we talked about the Sunday night baseball trend, but there's been a couple other of these angles too, where you get on the travel day. The travel days are usually Monday and Thursday to start new series, and you get a team that had just played a series at home. Now they got to go on the road to face a team that was just at home, and they stay at home. And then that first game of the series, the team that has stayed at home is 21-7. And the team that goes home to away, the inverse logically would be 7-21. There's 2 games that kind of do fit that scenario today. One is the White Sox going to Citi Field to play the Mets, and the Mets are obviously massive favorites over a bad team. And then the other one is Tampa Bay over Minnesota, where Minnesota is the team in the 7-21 situation against the 21-7. So I haven't done anything with this yet because I think the number's about right. I think Chris Paddock's got some regression coming. We almost saw it against Cleveland. He kind of got himself into a jam in the last start at home last week in Minneapolis, where he got to the 6, couldn't get anybody out, and then they ended up losing the game. But I would lean Tampa Bay here, even though Zach Littell, not great numbers, I would say, just a 444 on the XFIP, but would lean a little bit Tampa Bay here. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to get with that. Tampa Bay, by the way, just got to 500, 26-26. So sometimes you'll see that scenario with the team where it's like, okay, one more win and we get over 500, and then you might have a team, though, like Tampa Bay, where they're just going to trade wins around that mark all year. So as of now, no play for me in that situation.
All right. So it's fair. Fair. Regression is coming in your eyes, but the question, like we talked about with streaks for teams, is just trying to catch the falling knife, as we like to say. So keep an eye on that game. Red Sox, just to update you, have 2 on, 2 out So maybe trying to get back into this game against Patrick. Cubs got the leadoff runner on. There's now one out, and now second and third. So we got a double from Suzuki. Ian Happ gets to third. So Northsiders threatening right away against the lowly Colorado Rockies. Two runners on in scoring position and one out. And you can imagine the money line is skyrocketed, and it has minus 715. And the over under was 7 to begin in the bottom half of the inning. It's now gone up to 8. So I thought that was a little weird that just because the Rockies didn't score anything in the top of the first, it went from 8 to 7. Of course, the juice corresponded, but nonetheless, it's not like Colorado. I was personally, I was banking on any Colorado scoring. Red Sox got two on, but Brewers get out of the jam, so it remains 1-0 in Milwaukee, and that adjusted price is Brewers minus 155. So Garrett Crochet and the Sox were favorites. Now extra ups for the Brewers as we go to the bottom of the second. They're minus a buck 55. The over under 7, under minus 127. Anything live stand out to you?
Not yet. Crochet did strike out 2 in that first inning. Of course, we did like the over on his recorded out. Still at 17.5, but just this time minus 110 because he did, I believe, have 18 pitches in the first inning. The home run by Chorio, by the way, was on the very first pitch. So we'll see if he settles in against this bottom half of the lineup.
All right, good stuff. And then also, I should mention the Tigers still up 1-0, but they are threatening with for more. 2 on, 1 out. And we'll Eric Miller on the bump still to he's just come into the game to replace Birdsong, and he'll face Colt Keith with a high leverage situation with 1 out there in the bottom half of the fifth. Any sort of like long shots you thought of, or same game parlays? Anything caught your eye? Because I know we talked about the later games. You mentioned potential regression for Paddock against the Tampa Bay Rays were 500. What did you make of the Pirates' streak of 26 straight games of only averaging of only scoring 4 runs or less?
Yeah, look, played a couple team totals in that interim that did pay off with the Pirates, but now you got a pretty high total with them against Arizona, and I actually think I lean a little bit to the over. There's some 9.5s, on the 7s and the 9s, especially on the odd numbers. You could maybe include 11 if you're looking at like Sacramento or Coors Field, where they're a little bit more hitting parks, but you'll often see that where 9 gets juiced to the over and then 9.5, of course, because that's such a key number on totals, get juiced to the under. So that's what you're seeing with Pittsburgh and Arizona. I think Bet Rivers is still at 9 minus 120. I lean a little bit to the over here, but you're getting a little tug of war at that 9 and 9.5 with the market, which you often see with totals. Andrew Haney is at a 2.91 ERA, but at a 4.34 on the xFIP. The batting average balls in play is 2.34, which is pretty low for Haney. And then you look on the other side with Ryan Nelson, 2.89 ERA, but a 5.38 on the xFIP. That's almost a 2.5 run difference because 192 batting average balls in play. So that concerns you a little bit that you're going to get pitcher regression. But to your point, this Pirates lineup, sometimes they really struggle to hit the baseball. So haven't gotten involved. If I did, it would be the over 9.
And the Cubs do scratch, by the way. So they got a runner in, and there's runner on second still. Now 2 out. So maybe Palmquist can get out of this with a 1-2 pitch, to just allowing that 1 earned run. We have a walk in Detroit. So now the bases are chucked, as the bullpen has not been the answer, at least for one batter. Eric Miller still pitching. Now Riley Green at the dish with the bases loaded. Tigers 1-0 lead, threatening to blow this game open if they get a big crooked number here. Just a reminder, the newsletter has been fantastic. Its last one was 32 pages. It has Bet Rivers odds, links to all the podcasts, a one-stop shop for any sports bettor out there, tennis brackets and breakdowns, soccer previews. Go sign up at bettingweeklystudios.com. Tons of tips and anything you can imagine from a betting standpoint in there. So we're tracking 3 games. I want to get through your best bets. I'm going to come around. I'm going to play the Cardinals here. I think the market's still wrong on the Orioles. I'll go back to the well for St. Louis. They're much more reliable, and I like the pitching matchup with Fetty going against Charlie Morton. So I'll lay the 118 with the Cardinals as my only play of the day. No props, no first fives. I was toying with some first fives, even with the one with the Cubs with the first 3 innings, but I'll just do the Cardinals. Now, we know you have your Crochet You were looking at the outs, right? What are
Yeah.
your official plays for today?
Yeah, over 17 and a half outs. That was a minus 162. I laid a little bit less, but I think that might have been the closing price at Bet Rivers. But have that, have Gaussman over 5.5 strikeouts, anywhere from about minus 110 to 15, I think is the price range right now. And then Eric Fetty over 16 and a half outs against those Baltimore Orioles at minus 109. I'm eyeballing the board here if there's really any sides that kind of stand out to me. If I play a side, it may be the run line there with the Cleveland Guardians, especially Bet Rivers. That's the best price out there, laying just 117. So you're taking the 1.5 with the Guardians against Yamamoto and the Dodgers. Everything else, I thought from a side standpoint was probably priced right here. Lean raise, but no play for me there.
Okay. All right, good stuff. As always, Wes, we appreciate the insights of those three prop bets for you. Cardinals minus 118 for me. And that's going to do it for this edition of Betting Weekly Hardball on this holiday. We have Betting Weekly Fast Break. Top of the hour, we'll break down tonight's Western Conference Finals, game four, after the Timberwolves came back and emphatic fashion made it a series. So pivotal game four tonight. We'll also talk some WNBA, even though it's an off day in the W. We have some big Caitlin Clark news. So all that and much more. Top of the hour, Chris Macero, professional bettor based in San Diego, will be joining us. And then Wes is on the NBA show tomorrow as well, trying to pick up where he left off, which I believe was 5-1. So well done there. So thanks to Wes. And thanks to everyone behind the scenes who makes everything look so good here on the screen. I'm Doug Kezirian. We'll see you back here tomorrow.